I'm really glad to be here today. And I was, I've just been asked to crack one or two jokes. Unfortunately, I didn't have any jokes prepared. So you might have to just endure me saying one or two things. But one of the things I want to allude to is I've often seen a lot of people who become successful, whether they're within our Black community um, or it is within sort of family dynamics or beyond. And many a times we don't really get to see the true stories of the struggles that people go through to get to where they are. And I think more needs to be told about what people have gone through before we see success stories. And that's always something I'm keen to understand, to learn, which is why I love reading autobiographies. So if you have not read any autobiographies of the people you really, really see and like in your endeavors, I would really encourage you to do that. So first of all, so thank you very much again. And I really want to honor you all for taking your time to come and be here. And the Black History Month theme of Proud to Be is extremely huge. It's a huge topic. And tonight we are focusing more on the issue of tackling the breakthrough of Black people within the corporate world. Whether you're already working in the corporate world or you don't, or you are of a particular profession or another, the stuff we're going to share today is really going to be generic. So you need to just tailor what is suitable to your own environment and extract what you think might be applicable. But before we start, we're just going to do something quite lighthearted. And I'm just going to ask you all to participate, if you can, especially via chat, to just think about who your role models are. Who do you look up to? When we think of the themes of Black History Month, when we think of Black people that have done fantastic things, either in your community or in your life or in the world at large, there could be sports figures, they could be politicians, they could be entrepreneurs, they could be corporate people. Do you have any specific person or people that you look up to, or when their name is mentioned, you smile because you like something about them? They could be an actor, they could be a famous singer, anything. I just want to see, to just have a bit of a feel of what people think. And for those that are on the Facebook Live, feel free to put on the chat as well, whether it's on replay or it's on live, just for us to sort of do that as an initial activity. So feel free to type in the chat if you can. And it's also a test to see whether you are engaging. Barack Obama, wow, that's fantastic. That's actually from my dad, thank you. That he's a classic example of, what people probably didn't expect to happen in our modern history. So Mr. Chimbisi says, Dr. Martin Luther King, yes, he was quite a reformer. Somebody says Nelson Chamisa, brilliant, AKA Bukomana, that's fantastic. Michelle Obama, yes, I've actually got a copy of her book, Becoming. It's quite thick, it's a very good book, very, very good book. And yeah, so these are people that come to mind. I think other people I've seen before when it comes to Kevin Hart. Yes, that's a good one. He's a comedian, right? So yeah, so I've read a bit about him.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I've just got a few slides. So what I've done is I've put together some statistics of employment situations in the UK. All right, and I just want us to visualize this before we actually go into tackling the issue of breaking through in the corporate world. We need to have a background of the circumstances of the bigger picture. Okay, so this is detail of unemployment statistics. And you can see that it says that 4% of white people were unemployed, and this is from 2019, which is pre-pandemic. And the economy has changed drastically since 2020. 7% of the people were from other ethnic groups. Now, what I found interesting was that the Black and Bangladeshi and Pakistani people had the highest unemployment rate out of all ethnic groups. So the percentage was about 8% at the time the study was done, which kind of tallies with what you see on this graph here. Okay. Now, we don't know what proportion of these are actually Black, right? And the reason why I've brought this out is because one of the issues that we tend to struggle with is getting into positions of prominence, getting into positions of influence, so that our own children and the younger generations of the Black community can have role models, okay? Now, if at the point of entry, right, unemployment statistics already show that the odds seem to be against us, okay? Meaning that once you get into employment, you're already at a better stage than what we can see here. And you can see when it came to 2020, there was a bigger spike for ethnic minorities who were unemployed than our white counterparts. Okay, so I'm just sharing facts, so we probably already know this, but I really wanted us to visualize it so that what we then say later makes a little bit more sense. Second slide. This shows various articles from the press that talk about the prominence of executive leadership in the UK. So all this data is UK specific. Okay, I chose that so that it's more relevant to majority of the audience. This says that there were no Black executives in Great Britain. And this article, I didn't put the date here, but this was from 2020 when this came out. And that was in the top 100 companies in the country. Surprise, surprise, probably not. And then this talks about Black employees that hold senior roles, and it says just 1.5%, right? So you can see the reality of what we're dealing with in the topic that we've chosen today. And then if you work in the NHS or you're familiar with the health services, you might know about the Snow White Peaks, which was a survey that was done for discrimination in the governance and leadership with the impact of patient care in the UK. So it's London and England rather than wider UK. And the study found that Black and ethnic minority population is largely excluded from senior positions, both as NHS managers and board trust members. Quite worrying, but these are just facts, okay? So we're just taking stock of our environment. And then this one here is linked to the Snow White Peak study, again, which talks about recruitment processes. And it says that it's shown that there's a disproportionate favor of white applicants. And this is from 2013, but even when they did further research later, you know, it's gonna take a while, right, for things to move from this. So what I would like us to do then is I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. Again, as a form of participation in line with this topic, are there any specific challenges or common challenges that you can relate to within your working world? It might not be necessarily corporate, but looking at the statistics I've given you or other things that you've already experienced, right? Would there be issues that you feel are common or you have experienced as challenges, especially as a Black employee? Now, this is not to create any discrimination issues or anything like that. We're just discussing facts as they are. Does anybody want to contribute? You can use the chat if you feel comfortable with it. So somebody says, laziness on the part of Black people themselves. Okay, so this is interesting because what we're doing is bringing out the elements of saying you're not going to just blame the fact that you are a Black person and you're being discriminated. You're actually looking at what is the core factor that's actually causing you not to be productive. So are some of us just purely lazy? Are some of us just purely not motivated to really be high achievers? Okay, is that something that people can relate with? I can actually attest that that's one of the things that has happened, because when you then look at those that are out of work, there was also then a study that showed that some people did not want to do difficult jobs, but it might not represent everyone. Okay, anybody?
Expand on my point about laziness on the part of Black people themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It has often been argued that even with the new policies like equality and diversity, Black people aren't coming forward themselves to take up these positions, and then they just end up going to non-Black people.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so that's addressing the first point. The second point says lack of networking opportunities. Okay, so do you mind expanding on that?
Thank you, Rumbi. Thank you, everyone. Yes, you certainly hit the nail on the head there. So when you look at others, and I know when you talk about equality and diversity, you talk in terms of white privilege.
Yes.
So you'll find that as people of color, so as Blacks, you will find that our starting position, we already start on the negative part. Whilst when you look at the whites, sometimes they are there in positions not because of the skill that they know, not because of the knowledge that they have, but they are in that position because they know someone, or they know someone who knows someone. Or they may get into a position and then you get stuck at that same level, whilst you'll see other people coming, after you and quickly rising up, not based on merit, but based on networks and connections.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Dube. That is really true. And it's one of the things that we're going to look at as what we can actually do to help ourselves. Okay. So thanks, everyone. So the next one is communication barriers. Okay. So this one's interesting. I think as, I don't know, the nationality range of the people on this call, probably majority from Zimbabwe, or most of Africa, let's just say, or even people that are from the Caribbean that are Black, that may not have been born in the UK. We've probably come to the UK at some point in our lives. Although English is a second language, perhaps, it is the primary language we can probably speak. So we're probably already a notch above other nationalities that don't have English as part of their common language. So when it comes to communication, are we talking language only, or are we talking about additional issues about understanding the norms and the culture of the environment that we're operating in? I think this one needs clarification. I work with a few people that have moved to the UK as expatriates, and one of the things that they observe is that while they're connecting and networking with work colleagues, even when jokes are said or certain sayings are shared, in as much as they're English, because they're not conformed to the culture yet, it takes them a while to actually understand what is being said. So I would really be interested to know anything else around communication. Are we just talking about language, or there's more to it? So if you want to put that in the chat, that would be great. Or if you want to mention something, that'll be fine.
I think in some fields, I think it's more of accent.
Yeah.
Like when you're coming from outside, I've realized that some fields is very difficult, where you are supposed to be doing a lot of talking, and people are discouraged because they are not really understood.
Okay,
and
that's great.
It's very difficult. Yeah.
All right, that's a good one. Did you know that there is accent training available?
No.
I know that sounds, and this is a bit contradictory to us, because you're meant to be authentic, you're meant to be yourself, right? And I think, I don't know what policies say in various organizations and things like that. You should really not be discriminated because of that, in all fairness, because there are people that are probably, I don't know, of a European descent, and when they speak their English, they've got an accent, right? But I've seen that some people actually go and get trained to know how to speak a certain way given where they want to go. And we shouldn't really have to do that, right? But that's what some people have resorted to. So, it's a very, very valid point. And I think sometimes it knocks people's confidence. So yeah, I don't have an immediate solution for that one, to be honest, but I do agree that that's definitely a barrier. Thank you.
It's true about the misconception on the accent, but then there's also the thing about the tone, that if you speak loudly, you're viewed as being rude. Yep. And then there's some people that if they don't speak, they're viewed as dumb. It's not because that they're dumb, they probably are just, their personalities are just quiet. So there's that misconception that if people don't talk, people patronize them, and you find that when someone is relating to them, they have to speak slowly, and it's more like condescending. So I think that's one of the things that most Black people face.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Someone said, Charles says, when I was a student at uni, the attention given to the white students compared to the Black students. Okay, so there was more attention given to the white students. And would the Black students actually participate, or was it that, you sort of, I don't know whether you raise up your hand at uni. Sorry, I didn't go to university, by the way, disclaimer. So I'm not really sure. Do you raise up your hand at uni when you have got something to say, or does the teacher just, you know? So yeah, I'd love to know more about that. But that's already a starting point, because if you're in uni and you've experienced that, it might have a knock-on effect to how you then perform when you go into the workplace, because you're used to being left out. So again, that's a challenge. Okay, pronunciation of words. Yep, we've dealt with that one. You can't be what you can't see. No black role models at the top. Yes, that's absolutely right, Mr. Chimbizi.
I was saying, when I was a student, if we are struggling something, we want help from the lecturers. If you are a black student, the attention they will give you is minimal compared to the white counterparts. So in the end, but when it came to participation, okay, we could participate equally the same, because that one was open to everyone. But when it came to specific problems, or even having elemental, sometimes you have to struggle to get one. But our other colleagues didn't have any problems at all. So that's what I'm saying about that. So I could say, in a way, it was because of my color, my skin color. That's why I was treated differently from the other students. And you'll be actually a minority in the class. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's a challenge. So I think that's a real life challenge that probably other people can relate to. And I think that's not something we can drastically change if somebody is not giving you fair, access or fair attention to the help you need. They are the ones that need to actually change. But what can you then do about it because you've not received the help you need? That's probably what we need to then look at. But thank you for sharing that and explaining that. Okay, what to go to is we really want to then look at what can you do? What can you do as an individual to overcome these obstacles or these challenges? Because we are dealing with an issue that's, like I said at the beginning, that's probably going to take years and years to change. And unconscious bias is one of the key things that sort of have been prevalent, whether we're talking from what happened last year, with the whole big Black Lives movement, Black Lives Matter movement, or what's already been there. Naturally speaking, individuals are drawn more to somebody they can relate to, okay? So when you're in the workplace and you are the minority, right? If your managers and your seniors or majority of your colleagues are non-Black, or if they're white, let's just call it black and white as it is, they can relate to each other more easily by unconscious bias. And sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it, but most of them have had to get educated to realize that that is what they're doing. So there's a group of people that are probably what we call racist, and that's the word that everybody wants to avoid. Nobody will put their hand up and say they are, but we saw that in our community with especially the football, the Euro 2020 game. What happened? We all saw that. That was a perfect example of a section of society that we have that slayed on, the Black players of the team. Some of the people that were trolling in social media could be people that we work with. They could be people that engage with us on a day-to-day basis, and we don't know that they actually feel that way, okay? And then you've got another group of people who are just purely ignorant. They don't know how to interact with somebody who's different. So we have to then look at all these different spectrums. And then there's some that are actually keen to engage, keen to learn. They probably see beyond color, right? And all those, and other sections of people. I can't go through all the stages. I'll give you an example as a story. This happened to me, it's probably almost 20 years ago now. But I moved to the UK in my late teens. And I was at a school in year 12 doing A-levels. And I was in a classroom setting. So imagine this, you've moved from overseas, you've settled into a school, you've made friends, you're adjusting. And a teacher, one of the teachers who was my IT teacher, made a comment that up to this day, it does concern me. So we were having an informal conversation within the classroom, and it was to do with this topic of shoes. I don't know why. So some people were saying, I like high-heeled shoes, I like trainers, I like this, I like that. And I happened to say, I like flat shoes. The teacher's response in front of the whole class was, I don't blame you, Rumbi. You've probably been walking on bare feet all your life. Imagine a teacher saying that to you in front of a whole class. And in that moment, I was shocked. that somebody in a position of authority could think it's okay to say something like that.
Yeah.
At first I thought, okay, maybe she just doesn't have exposure. It's very hard to draw the line. Is she being racist or is she just being unkind, right? Because if she can say that, she's representing a teaching staff, right? She's representing an adult population in the country, okay? How many other people think like her, right? And she's also speaking in front of students. What sort of seed is she sowing in these young people? So these young people I was in class with, they're now also in their mid-30s, late 30s, right? What is their perception? How do they think about the issue of race? What do they feel when they see another person of color or a Black person who might have just emigrated? Do they think they've been walking on bare feet all their life, or they're coming from an uncivilized society? Therefore, by the time you're working with some of these people, they probably already have a preconceived mindset that's incorrect. So you've got a harder job to prove yourself. You've got a harder job to show that I can think, I can do things, I'm civilized, I'm modernized, and that makes it twice as hard. So I know that's not a very sort of professional example, but it shows you the kind of things that start to kick in. Okay, so the same teacher, again, on another occasion, we were going on a trip to London, and one of the things she said was, I don't foresee that we'll have any problems on our trip to London unless the police decide to stop us because of Rumbi and Samir. So Samir was like the other guy in the class who was non-white, right? And again, I thought, okay, now this is getting too much, right? What does she perceive? Does she think I'm a criminal? Does she think when the police see me, they see trouble? So a lot of things started to trend. And at the time, I didn't quite process this the way I do now, because I was much younger. I didn't report it. I didn't do anything about it. But when issues of race then came up as I grew older, I then realized that there is something that happened to me when that happened. And when I look at it now, I think about my own children. Are they going to experience that in the school environment, or in the sporting environment, or in the work environment? What perception are people going to have about them just because of the color of their skin? So I'm sure most of us here, you can relate to those thoughts, right? So the reason why I wanted to share that was, this is what we just have to deal with. There'll be people who think a certain way already. So when you're now in the workplace, that's something you need to sort of gauge to understand how enlightened are the people around you when it comes to the issues of race. Because when we started at the beginning, that's why I showed you the statistics. The unemployment rate is already showing that the odds are against us as people of color, as Black people, right? So when you're then in the workplace, the odds then become against you as to how you then progress, okay? And once you are in there, are you doing the right things to position yourselves to override all those nonsensical thoughts that some people might have about you? So it's one thing for us to focus on ourselves. Let's overcome things and limitations that are bad about ourselves. Let's overcome the laziness. Let's overcome the timekeeping problems. Many a times we're so late all the time, running late. You're the only one who's known to be coming late all the time, right? So let's remove all those elements that already increase the chances of us being eliminated from progression. Okay, and what I want to say is, one of the things that's very interesting at this point in time is most organizations are now wanting to be seen to do the right thing. So if you think about it, perhaps the Black Lives Matter movement, or the celebration of Black history, the schools are increasing the curriculum information that's going into Black History Month, so that it's not just Black history is not just studied in Black History Month, so that it's incorporated fully in history. So there's things that are beginning to happen that will probably change dynamics, but that's gonna take time. It's going to take many years, okay? So with organizations wanting to be seen to do the right thing, if we have more wisdom to position ourselves, more wisdom to really, I wanna use the word take advantage, but that's, guardedly, right? We need to be also very strategic to understand, okay, how can I make a difference to the situation that's happening at this point in time? Now, going back to the aspect of odds against us getting into the workplace first, because I really need to deal with that before we even talk about progression. I don't know if many of you are aware, but there was a study that was done a few years ago, and it turned out that most people were being removed from the selection process on job applications just based on their name. So if somebody saw a foreign name, chances were they just wouldn't get through. So, and there's a person who actually submitted a CV in their original name. So let's just say you put it as Ruby Dai Chamboko, you know, right? And then they submitted a CV again, exactly the same CV, but they changed the name to Sally Smith or something that's a bit more English. Before they knew it, they were receiving phone calls, they were receiving interview notifications, and this was embarrassing, okay? So it just goes to show that, again, whether it's unconscious bias or it's just, you know, the odds being against, it's just showing you the reality. So this person then shared these results and, you know, it became a big study and things like that. So what some organizations are now beginning to do is they now make names anonymous. So when you submit a CV, whether it's an agent or it's a software within the company, depending what route you've used, your names are just removed completely, because they want to make sure that they select talent based on genuine talent, not based on human bias that then selects candidates because of the foreign name issue. So somebody's just said, that's true about the name. It also applies to things like car insurance. Oh my God, with a foreign name on your premium, oh, being high. I've never heard about this, but no, I have heard about this, but I've not proven it. But thank you for sharing it. It will be really nice to get to the bottom of some of the sources, because, you know, this is some of the stuff we have to deal with. Okay, so back to what can you do? All right. So you are not the policymaker, you're not the one who's going to change everything in your organization. To some extent you can, but what is it that you can do as a starting point? Okay, culture of the organization you work for. One organization's culture is different to another. Okay, so you really need to understand how things work where you are. Okay, how are people expected to conduct themselves? How are you expected to operate? Okay, and what is possible and when within your organization setup. Okay, what are the policies? Because I've discovered that many a times we get jobs and we get into employment, but we actually don't know. We've not read the policies. We've not read contracts, right, into detail. Do you really understand? So that when something happens, are you in a position where you are able to actually say, no, this is actually against the policy. This is actually against my rights. This is actually against what the company says in its written policy in terms of what's going on. So that's something that can help you. And then the other thing that we should also be aware of is it's very important for you to do your stint even if you're at a junior grade. So what I mean by that is sometimes you're going to be expected to do what seems to be dirty work or what seems to be unfriendly or unimportant or unenjoyable tasks. You need to go through a phase of just proving yourself. Do those things, obviously for a while, but even if something is not enjoyable, your attitude in work matters, okay? Don't be too big to do small things, because once you've done those small things, you're building a track record for yourself, okay? And you're letting your work speak for you, right? The worst thing that you want is you're the only person of color in the office. You're the only person of color that really doesn't get the job done. You're the only person of color, you know what I mean? Like everything we've already said, it's kind of like sometimes doing a good job is not enough, unfortunately, and that's just the way it is. You probably are gonna have to go the extra mile. And that's a reality that we can't change at this point in time. Okay. The other thing I would say is make sure you participate in initiatives or activities for ethnic groups that might exist in your organization. And I know sometimes it feels like, nothing's going to change, or it feels like, you know, it's ticking a box, or it's just doing things for the sake of it. Remember, I said, think about your organization and what works for you. It might not apply, but if there is opportunities for you to serve in that capacity, do it and identify with it and be proud of it, right? Because for all you know, diversity and inclusion is becoming a huge part of most corporate agendas, okay? So if you're also involved in that, you also have a say, right? then that also increases the chances of you actually making a difference in your own way. Okay? So there's no point us sitting and doing nothing and expecting somebody else to do it. We have to be the ones that get our hands dirty and be the ones that are part of the policy makers of that diversity and inclusion policy. Okay? As much as it's possible. And also, the other thing I'll say is be proud of your identity and of who you are. Okay, I know we touched on the issue of accent earlier. You know, sometimes you end up sort of having to speak differently or things like that. Just be your authentic self. Be your authentic self as much as possible. Because many a times, and I know sometimes this might not favor you, but it's all about you being confident in yourself. So if you're confident and proud of your identity and of who you are, right? Let people ask you, you know, or show them. If it means you have sadza for lunch at work, let them know that's what you eat. That's the food you grew up eating, and be proud of it, right? I used to find people back in the day, they'll be like, they didn't want to be known to be a specific nationality. They'll lie that they're from a different country, you know, things like that. Like, I don't know if it still happens, but, you know, those are some of the little things that we probably need to come out of, and being proud of our own heritage and where we come from. The other thing I'll say is, and this is in no particular order, but just try and grab as much as you can. Many a times we are very timid. And I think somebody said it as one of the points of contribution, to do with not speaking or not contributing. And it also comes to the aspect of not asking questions or reaching out. And this is something that we have to work on. So if you're naturally an introvert anyway, that's just who you are. But within that, don't let that separate you from the crowd too much. Okay, if you're doing a task, or you're not too sure how something needs to be done, don't pretend like you know what you're doing when you've got no clue. The people or teams prefer somebody who actually says, this is what I understand, this is what I got up to, am I in the right direction, or can you please help me here, right? Assuming you work with people that are reasonably level-headed, and this is going to differ depending on the teams you belong to, etc. But many a times you can be given a task and you have probably got no clue what you're meant to do, but you don't say anything. I'm not saying go and say, I don't know what to do. No, at least show a bit of initiative, but reach out. It's very, very, very important, because there's nothing as being given something to do and you're meant to do it by Friday. It gets to Wednesday, you still don't have a clue. It gets to Friday, then you then say, oh, I didn't do it because. But why didn't you say it on Wednesday? Why didn't you say on Wednesday, this is where I got up to? Show that you have some initiative and you are communicating and you're asking questions. Okay, I know that sounds very basic, but these are the little things that we probably overlook, and they keep us at the bottom, or they keep us unseen, right? And the next one I'm going to go into is quite important, and this is to do with writing things down. As simple as this sounds, or documenting discussions, okay? So one of the things people are very good at in the workplace that I've discovered is, if a discussion happens and it's not been documented, it has not happened. Can anybody relate to that? So a time can come later where something is raised and then it's like, oh yeah, but we discussed it here, but if there's no record of it, right? So imagine it's to do with you, or it's to do with your progression, or it's to do with your performance, but it's not been documented. Somebody can just say, no, that, you know, that's not what we said, or that's not what we agreed. So get into the habit of writing things down or documenting. You've had a discussion to do with something, feed it back with an email, you know. So one of my friends had a discussion with their manager at the start of the year, and it was to do with the pay rise. Okay, they had a discussion, and they were having a negotiation, and I think the plan was they would look at it at a certain figure, perhaps by October or something like that, whatever the numbers were. And she did something. After that conversation, she still went back and sent an email to say, thank you for, you know, what we discussed. This is what we've agreed. We're going to review this on such and such a date, and all that. What then happened was, this manager she had been speaking to got ill, very, very long-term illness, and she's not been at work for months and months and months. But the person who's now replaced her, what they've literally just done is she's now re-forwarded that email that had been acknowledged, and she said, you know, this is where we got to with I don't know, Sally. Sorry, I keep saying Sally. I don't know why. And the new manager just took that up, and it went. So imagine if that conversation had not been documented. So think about your own work practices and your own sort of culture of discussions, or anything that you do. How important is it that you document things. And sometimes it's to cover yourself as well, you know. And I think those that work in health service, I think this is something that you probably already do. But in other professions, I think that's something that people need to work on as much as possible. And then also always ask for feedback, okay? Sometimes when it comes to an end of the year or performance review and things like that, it can be very hard to pick out what exactly have you done that is of significance. So anything that you do, right, get into the habit of just getting feedback, especially in writing. Hi, we did this project, you know, did I do according to expectation, or is there something that you think I could have done better? If you get into the habit of doing that, by the time the year ends, you've got little pieces of feedback on various things. And if you've already worked on what feedback you were given before, and that's already improved, that's something that can work in your favor. Okay, so these are little things that you can work on if you don't already do that. And also have clarity on your performance objectives. Many a times we work 9 to 5, we work very hard, or we work shift work or whatever we do, and it's a constant cycle of just doing the work. But there's no real objective of, okay, what is expected of me? What are they expecting me to achieve in order for me to get on to the next stage, right? What is expected of me that I should say when it comes to the end of the year? You asked me to do this and I did A, B, C, and this is the result. Can we do that? Can we demonstrate that? One friend of mine kept being told, you're underperforming, but they didn't even know what they were underperforming in. And it had to become an issue of, can we go back again to explain exactly what the expectations are? And this is another year or two down the line, okay? So if you know that position up front, then that makes life easy for you, okay? Now, coaching and mentoring, I can't re-emphasize, right? In the workplace, we have our managers, we have our co-workers and everything, but you still need to have an independent person in the organization that you can connect to. I think somebody mentioned about networks, access to information and things like that. Have people that are above you, whether it's somebody who's the same color as you or not, it doesn't matter, but find somebody who is in that capacity that can give themselves time for you. Is that right? Yeah, they can give time for you to just help you with general development points, you know, in the level of confidence that you can get. If your organization doesn't have a formal mentoring or coaching structure, then you obviously need to figure out the best way of doing that. But it's very important for you to learn from someone. I remember the first time I ever decided to get myself a mentor. You know, this woman was way above me in terms of experience, but sitting down with her for 1 hour, the amount of things I learned, I wish I'd known 2-3 years before, because nobody told me. Okay, so most of the stuff I'm sharing with you here, it's not because I have conquered or I've seen it all. It's because I've personally made a lot of mistakes along the way and I've learned from them. So I'm just bringing this together and making sure that from speaking to other people and sharing ideas with others, we're able to just come up with general themes of things that we can do. So please, coaching and mentoring is a very, very key tool that you just need to make sure you have and you utilize. If it has to be outside of work, try and connect to people in the same profession. Belong to groups of people that are within the profession that you're in and get to learn what they are doing that is working. And you can also try to apply that. Okay. I'm almost done. So just we just need to wrap up to get it onto something else. This one is important. So know your stakeholders. Okay. Now the stakeholders here, I'm talking about who is the actual deciding person in your role in terms of who determines your progression, who determines your reward, or who determines whether you get a promotion or not. What is it that they know about you, right? Now, this is important. So I had a situation where I was working extremely hard and I was doing the right thing, and I was working and I was working and I was working, but I didn't realize that I was not being seen by the right people. Okay. And it's not about trying to be what you're not or trying to impress. It's just about making sure that the right people know that you are delivering. Because if you're just working for, and you need to observe this, does your manager actually correctly represent you? Does your manager actually correctly speak for you when you're not in the room? Okay. So really kind of master that within your own sort of employment or arena or situation that you work in, so that you sort of make sure I'm not saying go and be friends with the people, but just make sure that they know who you are, because sometimes we are just not known, and this used to be a problem some time ago when there would be drinks after work, that kind of thing. People are going to the pub and all that. But you can't go to the pub. You need to rush home to the children. You need to, there are a lot of commitments you have, or it's not your sort of thing. But what would then happen was you then miss out on all these relationships and discussions that are actually happening with the big bosses. And the people that are going out for these drinks and mingling and whatever, they're the ones that end up knowing more information about what's happening when there's a project, they're choosing each other, right? So find your own way of integrating so that you're known by the right people. When they say, let's have a team lunch together, even if they're going to vegetarian and you like meat, sometimes you have to sacrifice and go, yeah? Because that's your way of actually connecting more and making sure you're being known and being seen, and let your work speak for you, okay? I think I already said that before. Now, this is a question that you need to ask yourself. In your area of work or in your workplace, what are you known for? When your name is mentioned, what do people think about you immediately? So other than the Black woman or the Black man, right? We're talking beyond that. What are you known for? So what am I saying? You need to look at an area that you can focus on within your team, that you become an expert and you stand out, right? It could be, I don't know, it could be something to do with how to use a tool on the computer, or how to use a certain system, or how to use a certain software, or how to do something that a lot of people can't seem to do. So when they know that they've got a problem, you're the solution. So think about your circumstances and how you can apply yourself in that situation. What is the brand that's attached to your name? What is the reputation that's attached to your name? So when you're not in the room, what are people going to say about you? And if you start thinking that way, it then influences, because at the end of the day, knowing that odds are against you, you're going to have to work twice as hard, the usual sort of stuff we already know. We have to be strategic about these things. And so that when it then comes to even demonstrating your efforts, right, you can then say, yeah, but even if you're not speaking for yourself, somebody else can speak for you, and it's true because everybody knows it's a fact. Okay, so think about that. And where possible, volunteer for extra projects. Okay, I know probably you're already slammed and you're probably already having difficulty keeping up with what you need to do, but sometimes that extra mile, again, and taking ownership of it. So I keep talking about taking ownership because I personally had a situation where I would work hard on a project with people, but they would somehow find a way of being the ones that take the glory. Do you understand? Can you relate to that? Because it was not in my nature to then say, oh yeah, I'm the one who did it, or I'm the one who came up with it, because it sounded like I'm being boastful. I grew up being told I need to be humble. I'm a Christian, we believe in humility, we don't believe in being, over the top in situations and things like that. But sometimes there's a way of doing that, such that you're fairly represented for the hard work that you've put in to go the extra mile, and not other people taking away what you have worked hard for. So we need to be a bit smarter. Yeah, we need to be a bit smarter. And and this is the key thing, right? With so many people not able to sit at the table, like somebody once said, if you don't have a seat at the table, you are part of the menu. Okay, so find ways of being able to access a table you can sit on in whatever capacity where you are. And this comes down to you having confidence in yourself and things like that. And these sort of things are not going to be for everybody. I understand that, okay? But you need to be smart, okay? And the last one I'll say is create boundaries. Okay, many times work, we create friendships, we create connections at work. If you can, as much as possible, and you this is probably not going to be for everyone, but have boundaries. Work colleagues, have them on LinkedIn, yeah? Social friends, family, sawiras, have those on Facebook and Instagram. I say that for a reason, because many a times those boundaries have become very gray in the world that we live in. And sometimes things have turned nasty for people because there is too much overlap. There is no boundary between work and social life. Okay. So I can't prescribe how you should manage this, but just think about it and see how you might need to restructure. You probably don't have to. It just depends on your colleagues and the kind of relationships you have. You know, is your manager on your Facebook account as well? And they kind of see everything. I don't know, it's up to you. But there needs to be some kind of separation and boundaries as to what you do and what you show and how you represent yourself. Okay. So these are just 2 books that I've chosen. There's probably like 20 of them or something. But these are just interesting books that sort of became very popular, especially last year. They've been written on the subject of, you know, Black lives and heritage and life in the workplace, etc. So the first one here, it's called Slay in Your Lane. And it's a guide for generation of Black women and to inspire them, you know, to make lemonade out of lemons. And that just simply means whatever situation that comes your way that's challenging, you turn it around and you make it positive. How do you do that as a Black person? I know it says Black women, so, you know, probably more tailored to women, but those are the people that wrote it and their background. And then the second one, again, is by a mixed race author called Afua Hirsch. So, and she's talking about growing up in a predominantly white area and how people used to treat her. So again, reading this kind of stuff helps you know, or it gives your white colleagues who read this, right, get to understand more about what it's like to be a Black person. When you also read these books, it also makes you understand how you can build yourself up more confidently and the kind of struggles that some people have dealt with and how they've overcome them. Okay, so pay attention to materials like that as much as you can. This one called I'm Remarkable. Ignore the date that's on there. But I'm Remarkable is a course that I did. It's a free course, by the way. So if you go on Google and you type I am Remarkable, right, it takes you to the page where you can actually book a free course with them. And it teaches people in underrepresented groups about celebrating their achievements in the workplace. When I did this course, it literally turned me around because it taught me how I can promote myself. And when I say promote myself, it's literally just speaking well about what you've done in a way that you're not boasting, but you're just literally proud of what you've done. And it's a fact. And that's again going back to that subtle difference I was telling you about, you know, my culture and maybe the way I'm raised up or the way I am ingrained to say, oh, I don't really want to blow a trumpet or things like that. It kind of teaches you how you deal with that. And it also talks about the social perception around self-promotion and sort of dealing with that in the workplace. So if you are, whether a young person, old, if you're already in a professional capacity, this course will be really, really, really helpful. You literally go on Google and you book it and they tell you when it's next available and you can literally just attend it and participate in that. Okay, so I think this is what I had to share. And I don't know whether anyone else has got any contributions in the comments. I can see there have been some comments that have been coming through while I've been speaking. But I just want to say thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found it helpful. Like I said, all the facts might not apply to you or to yourself.